Okay, thank you all for coming. I want to start out by saying I'm deeply troubled by what happened this week in the Iowa House. I've had 30 years in the classroom. I know how hard teachers work to make sure our kids get a great education in Iowa. And Republicans have obviously stopped listening. They've stopped listening to the Iowans on the front lines, the ones that are there working with their kids, the educators. We had a public hearing this week on Monday in a cramped room. They were treated like second-class citizens. The Speaker of the House came and introduced himself and stayed for all of 10 minutes. Half of the Republicans didn't even attend. Very, very troubling for me. Education should be our top priority. They have lots of excuses about why, the funding has to be 1.25%. But not once did I hear a Republican, when we were debating the bill on the floor, get up and talk about the kids, the teachers, and how this would be affecting them. Not once. Representative Baltimore spoke several times and never once mentioned the kids of his schools. Republicans plan to break the law again, which we found out at the very end of the debate on Tuesday. They will not be setting allowable growth as they should by law by February 16th. We should set allowable growth for 2016-17 30 days after the governor's budget talk, and that's February 16th, and they said they do not plan to set that. If the 2-year process of budgeting is good for our state, why isn't it good for our kids? When I started teaching 30 years ago, we knew in Iowa that education was our top priority. We knew that it was important to people on both sides of the aisle. It was important down here in Iowa. And one of the people at the hearing had a great story. He said, I've been told and told and told, there's only so many ways you can cut that pie. He said, you know what? You guys are the bakers. You're the ones that decide how to cut that pie. So where are our priorities? Are they with the 500,000 kids in Iowa? After this week, we know that education is not the top priority of the House Republicans.
Good morning. And just following up with what Representative Steckman just said, Iowa at one time did equal educational excellence. At one time, we were number one in the state. We were very proud of that reputation, and we used to point it out consistently how well our state and our children were doing in education. But unfortunately, Iowa has been losing that lead. For example, in 1996, according to the National Assessment of Educational Progress, Iowa ranked 6th nationally in 4th grade math scores and 1st in 8th grade math scores. By 2013, Iowa had fallen to 21st and 14th in 4th grade reading and math, and we had fallen to 30th and 25th in 8th grade reading in math. Governor Branstad last week said we've been complacent for too long. Others have passed us. Now we're playing catch up. So what happened? Our scores did not do a nosedive. In fact, Iowa's student achievement is about the same, in spite of the fact that we have more academic challenges in our classrooms today. For example, we have far more students who are living in poverty and being non-native English speakers. Here's what happened. Other states realized the importance and value of educational excellence. They realized that in order to attract high-skill, high-wage jobs, they needed to invest in educational excellence for their kids. During that time, as other states were investing more money, Iowa went from 24th to 35th in the nation in terms of overall investment in each student. In the last election, Governor Branstad ran on Iowa's economic recovery. On Tuesday, Republicans voted to keep Iowa students in a recession. Iowa's losing our lead because Iowa Republicans are allowing other states to beat Iowa at our own game, and that is educational excellence. Iowa can do better. Iowa must do better.
When it comes to supporting Iowa's kids, Governor Branstad and House Republicans have left them behind. And you've heard from two people before. I can just tell you, Senate Democrats don't think the House budget or the governor's budget is acceptable. We are going to go out, visit schools tomorrow. Many of our members will be in schools across the state of Iowa tomorrow. And we've already started to hear that there will be more crowded classrooms, more teachers laid off, and less opportunities for our children. That's what's wrong with the House budget and the governor's budget when it comes to K-12 education. We're leaving kids behind, taking away their opportunities. So we're going to work hard to listen to people out there and come back next week and probably put together some numbers on that. We got to fit this into a responsible, balanced budget. But education, K-12 education in particular, has always been a priority for Iowans, always held high in their list of things they think are important. And we're going to work very hard to make sure our budget reflects the rhetoric. And right now, it doesn't. We will fall. Right now, we're at 35th in the country. We will fall to as low as 40th in the country in terms of dollars per student. And that means opportunities per student in the state of Iowa. So we think that's unacceptable. We've got to put together a budget where instead of being at 35th, our goal ought to be to get to the midpoint in the country, at least the midpoint. We still, in most categories, our results in education are better than the national average. So we're still in the top 10 in many of those test scores, but we're going to fall as we've been falling. So we've got to do something about that. We've got to pick up ground, and we've got to do it in the context of a budget. So that's our plan for next week. Both this Friday and the following Friday, we'll be visiting schools across the state of Iowa to listen to teachers, to listen to students, and to listen to parents. So I'll turn it over to Mark.
Just a couple more things that I want to mention about this, and I do see this as a very grim situation, and a grim situation for a state that has always prided ourselves on having a quality public school system. Representative Steckman talked a little bit about the violation of the law. What took place this week in the debate was a year late, and I would like to give the phrase that it was a dollar short and a day late. It was a year short, and it was several dollars short here in the actions that they took. Those of you who were in the chamber then know that I asked the majority leader regarding the bill that we should be focusing on for FY17. And the comment back was that they plan to do that in a bill later this session and not by the deadline of February 12th. So Representative Steckman talked about violating the law. I will say that they are continuing to violate the law. And as far as I'm concerned, this is unconscionable for a body with the responsibility of making laws for the people of Iowa.
Questions?
So, in the Senate, are you going to take up education spending bill on the floor next week, or in committee?
I don't. We will comply with the law.
As
that
we
mean-
have for 3 years.
Yes, and we've complied with the law for the last 3 years in the Senate. We will comply with the law. When the timing of that is, as you know, that would be 30 days from January 13th, right?
12th.
And so that would be February 12th. So we will comply with the law. We're going to do our best to do it as quickly as possible, but we also think it's really important to listen to teachers and students and parents across the state of Iowa. So we're going to go through that before we finish this up.
So that might be next week or the following, within the next 2 weeks? You'll pass an education bill then?
I have a calendar too.
So you will pass an education spending bill within the next 2 weeks?
We will follow the law. That's what we're required to do, and we've followed it for the last 3 years, and others in this building haven't. So we think it's unacceptable to just ignore a law you don't like. Republicans think that's okay. Just ignore a law you don't like.
Is this going to be one of the key issues of the session, education spending, or is that?
Here's the truth. K through 12 education has always been the top issue in the legislature, as it should be. That is the single most important thing that this state deals with, is giving everybody a ticket, education being the great equalizer, giving everybody an opportunity for a better life. So and that's what Iowa has to do, and that's why we're going to fight hard on this.
Yes. If I read it right, I think the Republicans have a bill to change the law so they're not breaking it.
Well, it would seem to me that you would go with the law the way it is and work on changing it after, but first we need to follow the law. I mean, that to me would be the most important thing to do.
Joyce, if you've seen a bill, I haven't seen the bill that
Well, I
would
have.
change
I
the...
think I'm on the subcommittee.
Okay,
Right.
that's coming forth, okay. But the law that is on the books stays on the books until something replaces that. And so if they do not act by February 12th this year, they are violating the law.
In the end, what does that even matter? It's true they're violating the
Well-
law, but, you know, you don't get arrested. I mean, when
Here-
people
here-
hear, what's the
Here's how it matters. Republicans are saying other issues have a higher priority than K through 12 education. That's why this issue matters. They're saying education should go to the back of the bus.
I'm just saying that there's no punishment. You break the law and you get publicly shamed, but nothing happens though, right?
Yeah, it's a very major image problem, in my opinion, to be out here saying that people need to stop at stop signs, they need to do other things that we require, and then we're not doing that ourselves. I hear people talk about that with the General Assembly. It is not the General Assembly. It is the Republican-led House of Representatives that has consistently violated the law now 4 years in a row.
So we're playing by a double standard, and somehow we're above the law. But, you know, it does make a difference, because if the school districts don't have a pretty good idea how much funding is going to be available, they're going to have to start handing out those pink slips to teachers sometime this spring already. So it is very important for school boards and administrators to know where they're at financially in investing in our kids.
President Yoakum's comments are the real crutch of this, and Representative Steckman hit that point as well. They're saying that we need to do two-year budgeting. They're not allowing our school administrators to do the same.
So Mike, you'll pass both an FY16 bill and an FY17 funding bill to the House?
That's correct.
But you don't have numbers locked down yet?
We're going to listen to teachers, to school administrators, to parents, and to students over the next 2 weeks. And then we're going to craft a budget that fits inside the context of the rest of the budget. But we're going to make sure that K through 12 education, as it should be in Iowa, as it should be for every Iowa kid, is the number one priority when it comes to the budget. That's why the law is set up the way it is. We take K through 12 education dollars off the table first and make those investments, and then we decide everything else in the budget. But it's supposed to be number one.
I might want to add to that, in the last 5 years have been the 3 lowest in history funding levels that we have, that schools have had to deal with. And they have picked all the low-hanging fruit. I mean, now the cuts are going to be crucial to the rest of, to these school districts. They're going to make huge cuts. Class sizes will be bigger, programs will be cut. And in the time when we have our poverty population almost doubled, our ELL population has doubled, this is the time when we should be investing more. Do we want to build more prisons, or do we want to invest in our kids?
Is there any thought about...
Mississippi, watch out. Iowa's vying for worst in the country when it comes to its support for education.
Is there any thought about retrenching on the school reform where you are putting a lot of additional money if things are so dire in terms of not enough kids in the classroom? Why are you doing things like teacher leadership things where you're pulling teachers out of class? Why don't you stick those people back in the classroom and bring up the class sizes?
They were supposed to go hand in hand.
Well, and the deal was the additional resources were designed to be able to let schools hire other teachers to fill in those places where we took the best teachers out for part of their day to mentor other teachers. So that's what that whole investment is about. More teachers, not less teachers. But in the end, the Republican budget for education means we'll cut other teachers and the teacher leadership system will fail.
Do you have an exact date that you'd like to have, sort of a response in terms of how to go about this? I mean, I know you said the next 2 weeks you're going to keep talking, you're visiting different Iowa schools, but I mean, is there a more specific date as to when we have something?
Well, obviously, pretty soon we will reach that conclusion. So we don't have much time, and we absolutely intend to comply with the law, but we do have time to listen to teachers and students and parents and school administrators. And so we'll do that. But let me repeat, we will comply with the law.
This will all have a ripple effect. How will this affect your ability to negotiate a budget for FY 16 and 17 if first decision out of the chute you can't reach agreement and then you end up where you're at?
You've skipped ahead quite a few steps to the one where you say we can't reach agreement. We'll reach agreement at some point.
And you'll do that before you move into the other budget?
It's our belief that the law is a good law that says K through 12 education should be the most important budget item, that opportunities for our children to get a ticket to a better life, the great equalizer, that should be the first item off the top of the state budget, and then make hard decisions about the rest of the state budget.
So can you give us a percentage? Are you talking about 6% increase for each of the next 2 years?
We are going to listen. We're going to go out there. We're going to take the budget numbers. We're going to figure out what we can afford. But let me say, we think the principle ought to be at a minimum. We think we ought to have a target over several years of getting to the national average. We absolutely think that. And we recognize that budget challenges may make it impossible to get all of that done in 1 year. But we ought to be able to come up with investments that mean we improve relative to other states, not decline relative to other states. And that's what the House and the governor's budget does, makes us decline. We will go from 35th to 40th.
So that's flat out unacceptable, what they have done. It's not going to be possible that after listening to students and teachers that you're going to come up with.
I don't know, maybe they'll tell us that. It doesn't seem likely to me. Maybe they'll tell us, oh, the House budget's just fine. So far, I haven't heard those words. Well, last week we did the survey of superintendents. There was one in the state of Iowa. So 90 out of 200, 99.5 said it was okay.
And
Or said their budget was unacceptable, or we ought to be higher.
And of all the people who spoke at the public hearing on Monday night, Linda Fannell from the governor's staff spoke in favor of what was occurring, and one other person kind of spoke in favor. Everyone else spoke about the problems with what the House was doing.
I was just going to say, it sounds like you have a lot of information in terms of the public responding to this. So, I hope it doesn't sound, what's the point of going out to these schools now to gather more information, or what is it that you're compiling to understand?
To make the public case. To make the public case that Iowa should not be faltering when it comes to our investments in K through 12 education. To make that public case.
They now know what the House vote was.
Well, I wish more, as a retired educator, I wish more of our legislators would actually go into a classroom and spend some time there and visit and see what actually goes on and what's happening in those classrooms. You can't be the expert if you don't even know what you're talking about and haven't been there.
On another subject, how strict are you going to be about a bipartisan vote on the gas tax bill? Are you going to require 14
Democrats and 12 Republicans, so it's actually strictly bipartisan based.